All right, well, this has certainly been an interesting week. As the title indicates, platinum, palladium mainly, and also rhodium just won't stop. While platinum and rhodium prices are just climbing within ranges that they've previously been in, palladium is just smashing its records one day after another. Last week, it almost went up to $1,500 an ounce. Well, this week, it just shattered that ceiling. It went up to 1502, 1515, 1532, 1552. Rhodium kept going up over 2,700, up all the way to $2,790 an ounce as of the end of the week. Again, not the highest it's ever been. It almost hit $10,000 an ounce back during the financial crisis during the late 2000s. But still, regardless, it's been jumping hundreds of dollars an ounce in just a matter of 2 weeks. And platinum, which had been over time, over the past year or so, falling down, over the last week and a half has been jumping back up, almost regaining $100 an ounce of value, going from being down near 780 all the way back up towards 870 before falling down a little bit again. So while the other two are still within ranges they've seen in the past, palladium is just absolutely shattering every single expectation set in front of it. Like, seriously.
This is madness!
Though it's not really madness. It's perfectly reasonable, a little bit panicky, but somewhat perfectly reasonable response to what's going on. So basically, the reasoning behind it all is the expected strike of all mine workers in South Africa. South Africa being the nation that mines and thus supplies roughly half of the world's platinum, roughly 2/3 of the world's palladium, and roughly 80 to 90% of the world's rhodium. Those significant fractions all coming from a single nation. And a nation that has not just been slowly becoming a little bit less stable as of late, but also now a nation whose mine workers are all potentially about to go on strike. And there was nothing in the way of real negotiations between the workers and the company they're in dispute with. Although for the moment, the strike has been delayed by a week or two, but if that doesn't go anywhere, then all the workers are just going to go on strike, and thus all the mines in the country are going to shut down, and thus the country's platinum, palladium, and rhodium output will obviously grind to a halt. Now, the reason specifically for rhodium and palladium prices jumping up by so much more and so much more quickly than platinum prices in a result of this is because when there's supply disruptions, or expected supply disruptions, there's usually a lot of, specific metals held as, bars and ingots in reserves. And like gold and silver, there's a lot of platinum held in a lot of places in reserve amounts. However, there's not a lot of palladium that's actually available on hold, and not a lot of rhodium either. So that's obviously really concerning. So, welcome back everybody to another weekly energy and resource update video, where as always, every week we go over energy, oil and gas, electricity, everything, resources, minerals, mining, agriculture, everything that's foundationally important, everything that really underpins our civilization, but that has become, in the modern day, all but ignored and thrown aside by both society and mainstream media at large, in favor of, political scandals and Twitter drama. So if you're someone who's interested in and likes hearing about energy and resources and other things of the sort, then by all means please subscribe and stick around, because we talk about that stuff all the time. That's kind of the main point of the channel. Now, to go down the usual list of things, starting with the weekly data releases, U.S. oil production bumped up again, a little sooner than I expected, up to 12.1 million barrels per day. As I've been repeatedly saying, I expect it to get up to about 12.8 this year, maybe 12.9. And expecting it to reach its second peak and final peak at between 13.4 and 13.7, maybe 13.8. U.S. oil consumption jumped up from the previous week up to 21.47 million barrels per day. Individual consumption numbers within that came out as gasoline at 8.98 million barrels per day, diesel fuel at 4.08 million barrels per day, jet fuel took a sudden jump up to 1.94 million barrels per day, and propane consumption came in at 1.63 million barrels per day equivalent. U.S. crude oil inventories had gone up over 450 million barrels in storage, but over the course of this week took a decent drop by a little over 8 million barrels, down into the lower 440s again. Price-wise, oil lingered still in the same range between $55 and $58 per barrel, climbing slowly over the week up towards 58 before taking a sudden drop just at the end. In terms of natural gas, U.S. natural gas production bumped up by a little bit again, up to 99.8 billion cubic feet per day. U.S. natural gas consumption came in at 106.9, with the individual numbers within that being 42.6 billion cubic feet per day going towards heating, 24.4 billion cubic feet per day going towards natural gas-fired power plant consumption, and 6.8 billion cubic feet per day being consumed by the pumping system for the natural gas pipelines. U.S. natural gas storage dropped again, taking a drop down to 1.54 trillion cubic feet in storage. And this 1.54 is in comparison to normally, on average, we would still have 1.96 trillion in storage. And even last year, which was a high demand winter as well, we were still up at 1.69 trillion. Price-wise, natural gas slowly climbed over the week, starting around $2.65 per thousand cubic feet, and over the course of the week it climbed up to just under $2.85. Now, the majority international oil production data was finally released after over 2 months of delay. Starting with Azerbaijan. Azerbaijan, the last time we left it off months ago, had declined gradually to 797,000 barrels per day. Well, the month after that, it apparently took a sudden drop down to 759, but since then climbed back up to 763, and then, as of the latest data, 796,000 barrels per day. The UK continues its uncoordinated wobbling. When we last left off, it had dropped down to 842,000 barrels per day. The month after that, it went down to 831, then back up to 948, and as of this latest data, it dropped back down to 924,000 barrels per day. Australia, since we last saw them, has been climbing up each of the 3 months, up to 298, then 318, and this last month, just by a tiny bit, up to 320,000 barrels per day. Brazil has been kind of acting like the UK as of late. It dropped down to 2.49 million barrels per day, then shot back up to 2.61, and as of most recently, dropped back down to 2.57 million barrels per day. Colombia took a gradual climb upwards since the last time we saw them, bumping up from 868 to 879, and up to most recently 883,000 barrels per day. Equatorial Guinea continued to hold at about 176,000 barrels per day, but most recently began to drop again, coming down to 161. Gabon continued to relatively hold its plateau. It had previously dropped down to 180,000 barrels per day, but then came back up to 200,000, held that for several months, and as of this most recent month, dropped back down to 180,000 again. India has continued losing production, down to 696, down to 694, and then most recently down to 692,000 barrels per day. Indonesia, a former OPEC member that peaked in production long ago, continued declining as well, starting the most recent updates at 805,000 barrels per day, dropping down to 777,000, and then dropping down most recently to 747,000. Kazakhstan, the last we saw them, they had reached their record high of 1.9 million barrels per day, and then suddenly dropped down to 1.68. Since then, they climbed back up to 1.82, then to 1.83, and as of this most recent month, back up to just over 1.9 million barrels per day. Malaysia, in a trend reversal, actually recovered some production, starting the most recent updates at 597,000, climbing back up to 630, and then most recently 654,000 barrels per day. And Oman continued to hold its relative production plateau, although slowly climbing. The last time we saw them, they were at 975,000 barrels per day, and then they increased to 990,000, then to 996,000, and most recently came in at just over 1 million barrels per day. The Republic of the Congo, the small one, not the big one that's the main cobalt producer, but the smaller one that's the oil producer. They dropped to 342,000, then to 337, and now most recently down to 317,000 barrels per day. Thailand recovered some and then lost a tiny bit, starting off the most recent updates at 217,000 barrels per day, jumping up to 236, and then down a little bit to 234. Vietnam recovered a little bit of production, going up from 225,000 barrels per day up to 232, then up to 235 most recently. Trinidad and Tobago continues its terminal decline, whereas last we saw them, they had dropped from 65,000 barrels a day down to 62. Over the past 3 months, they dropped down to 60,000, then to 58,000, then to 56,000. The West African nation of Ghana continued to hold a plateau at around 174,000 barrels per day. Papua New Guinea, a relatively underexplored nation, continued to relatively hold a plateau at around 51 and 52,000 barrels per day, the most recent month coming in at 52,000. And last on this update list, Turkmenistan continued to hold its plateau at 245,000 barrels per day. And we had one discovery over the course of the week. It was a gas discovery off the coast of Cyprus, somewhere between 5 and 8 trillion cubic feet. And also this week, finally, the USGS released the MCS 2019. It contains yearly analytical and update data on mining across all metals, all minerals, or at least most of them. And since it covers so many things, I'm actually going to make a separate video specifically for that, about all the data contained within it. So that should hopefully be coming out this coming week, along with next weekend, the regular weekly video as always. But that's about it for this week, so thank you everyone who stuck around and listened. If you enjoyed staying around, then please leave a like on the video. If you really enjoy everything and you'd like to support me in my survival attempts, then links to my Patreon, PayPal, and even Redbubble shop are in the description below. I absolutely hope everybody's doing well, and I will see you all around next time.